Today on Dirt Nation Off-Road, we're doing a little bit of experimentation. We're going to be throwing some bigger coils on our mid-travel Tacoma coilover setup and seeing what happens. Let's get started. Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to an episode of Dirt Nation Off-Road. So today what we're doing is, well, an experiment on our 2017 Toyota Tacoma. And the experiment has to do with ride height, spring rate, all of that fun stuff. Now, we're not going to get too scientific, but let me tell you what's going on with the truck. A couple years ago, I threw coilovers on this truck. Right now it's currently, let's take a look down here. It's running some King coilovers. You can see them right there. Now, when you look closely, you see how these springs are really close together? That has to do with how much preload is in our shock. You can see I have a good 2.5 to 3 inches of preload on the shock, which, you know, sometimes can be okay, but most of the time it's not a good thing. Now on this truck, I'm currently running some 16-inch 700-pound springs, which is pretty standard across the board when it comes to Tacomas. You know, when you do a mid-travel setup, that's usually the springs that you go with. What I have over here that we're going to be putting in the truck is I have a set of 18-inch 700-pound springs from a Toyota Tundra. Now the reason that I'm doing this is I don't like the ride height, and I also don't like how the truck performs when you're going a little bit faster, because it's really stiff in the front, and rightfully so, right? You have a lot of compression on that spring, so it kind of binds up. It doesn't have a lot of travel. I want to soften it up a little bit, but at the same time give myself some more ride height. Plus, the fact that I 63 swapped this truck, it's really soft in the rear. It's got a nice 12-inch shock. It's got good travel. The rear is really good. Now, I want to work on the front to dial in a little bit better. Now, the reason I think this experiment will work, the Tundra that I got these from, we'll see him later. This was Tundra Vic. On his Tundra, he was having the same exact issue, but since the shocks are a little bit bigger, he went from an 18 to a 20-inch spring. So I'm thinking same problem or same solution, right? Go from a 16-inch to an 18-inch, have less preload on your spring, maybe it'll raise the ride height a little bit and make it a little bit softer so that the truck sits a little bit more even, and then when we're riding around on the trails, it's not so stiff in the front and soft in the rear. Now, along the way, what I'm working on right now is, you know, usually during springtime before it gets into summer, because I really don't like wrenching during summer, I usually do a once over on all the trucks. So right now I gotta do once over on this and that, and then we got the ladies Jeep. We got everything to work on. On the Tacoma, the IFS suspension is really wonky. You have to make sure everything is solid on it, or else it'll start performing badly all over the place. It's kind of, you get one part that's working bad, it's like cancer. It spreads to the rest of the freaking vehicle and it'll just not work. So we're gonna check the hubs, we're gonna check the brakes, the, you know, ball joints. We're gonna check all of that stuff to make sure it's solid and ready for, you know, a good few months of wheeling and trailing and all that fun stuff. So what I'm gonna start with right now is jack up the truck. I'm gonna start checking some parts. I'll show you guys what I'm checking, what I'm looking for, and then we'll start tearing it apart. I have an axle to replace. I have brakes to do that I'm definitely gonna do. And then I might change the hubs, I might change some other stuff. We'll see. But let's jack up the truck and dive into it. All right, now that we got her jacked up, the first thing we're gonna do is check the bearings. So what you'll do is put your hands at, what is it, 10 and 2? No, 12 and 6. And just wiggle the tire. So there is 0 play, which tells me the bearing is currently good. And then you wanna check for play going this way, which sounds like we have a little bit, which you're gonna have a little bit of slop in the steering wheel. Cool. Checking it out, let's see, that has 0 play, which is good. You're gonna wanna check your bushings. Now, if I had my bushings, I'm probably gonna order some to replace them. We'll do that another time. My ball joint, I know is gonna need replacing because it's been, actually these are the ones I got with the arms a couple years ago, but it'll be fine for now. That's our culprit right there. We're gonna have to loosen the preload off of this spring before we pull the whole shock out, and then we're gonna do our brakes. So we're gonna take out the brake pads, we're gonna take the rotors to go get refinished, and then we have to change that axle right there. In order to release the preload on this, pretty much you need this tool, and you can twist the collar, but before twisting the collar, you have to loosen this one right here. So I have an Allen that fits right in there, and then I have my nut, or you could just use an Allen that you have. This is what I have. I'm gonna loosen it just a little bit because remember, there's a ton of pressure on this. So because this is aluminum, it's a little soft, and I think these are steel. If you loosen it too much, you can break the collar and it'll just go straight up, and that's not good. So we're gonna loosen it a little bit just so I can start to twist this and start to, you know, take off some of this pressure. Also, you're going to want to probably put some WD-40, which I'll do right now. Yes. Let's see how our brake pads look. Actually, our brake pads are not that bad, but I'm going to change them anyways just to have a new set. Oops. Okay, so. So, protect the coil over. Our new one. Oh, look at this one, has gold on it. Fancy schmancy. Why isn't my diff leaking? That's what's worrying me. Shit. There we go. We're going to jump to the other side. All we have to do is take out the shock and the brakes, and then we are ready to move on. So next, we'll get to swapping out the coilovers. Let's get it. All right, so we're getting ready to pull these springs off. So our experiment may not work. We might need to try some different springs. So I just measured right now. These are actually a 16-inch coil spring. It's like stock size for a Tundra. Speaking of Tundras, look at this, Tundra Vic. Tundra Vic has a fancy schmancy freaking spring compressor, so we are gonna...
And look, here's a dedication.
Look at that. So we're gonna pull this spring off. I actually want to measure this. I want to see the difference between the two springs to see if we can cram that other one in there. I don't think we're gonna be able to, so I might pick up another set of springs, but for now we're just gonna take this one off.
Actually, I set this up at your height.
You guys like grenades? That's a girthy difference. Not girthy, lengthy. Oh yeah, look at that.
And this one's 13.5, but it should be 14. I mean, it just came off, so maybe.
I'd say let's try it. Fuck it. So that's all the distance we have to clear right there. Plus that collar. That collar is, that's a good amount. We'll see. I mean, even with my current setup, the math still checks out, because I had about, I didn't measure it exactly, but it was at least 2 inches of preload plus.
What was this one, like 13.5?
That was 13.5.
14.
Yeah.
So this is 2 inches.
2 inches. I had 2 to 2.5 inches of preload in it.
2 inches means a lot.
Oh, fucking A, it does. Looks okay so far. We got a little bit ways to go.
Oh, that's as hard as I've ever cranked it down. Look at the strings.
But look, you can release that much now. Fuck, dude, I think it might work. Dude, if that space evens out, we might be good. Look at that. That's better spacing than what was on there currently. That's a lot better spacing.
Yeah. There you go.
I don't think there's going back now. This is a bomb. A bomb. All right, look at this. That is the finished product. Looks a lot better, huh, Vic?
I think so. I think we lucked out.
Yeah, honestly, I didn't think that was gonna work, but that is decent gapping. Before I couldn't even fit my fingers in there. And I don't know, we'll see. We are gonna run home, throw these on the Tacoma, and then we'll probably check in tomorrow because I'm gonna get my brakes back from getting turned. And then we'll throw the truck together and then go flex it on a rock and go hit some whoops or do something. And then we'll wrap it up from there. All right, hello and good morning. So we have our coilovers ready to go. We're gonna throw them on the vehicle. Now, I didn't end up putting any preload on these, but I might, once I put them on, I'm gonna see how it settles. And then we'll, make some fine adjustments from there. So for now, we're just gonna start throwing her back together, and then I still gotta do an oil change on the truck and a couple other things and yada yada yada. But I'm short on time this morning, so let's get to it. All right, so shocks in, but real quick, I just wanted to mention with brakes, because the brakes that I use, I actually really like these, so I want to give them a shout out. My rotors and my pads are from Hawk Performance. So this is actually the marketing guy goes to Azusa with us sometimes, so he kicked me onto these, and ever since then I freaking love these. And I use these pads for the Tacoma, I use it for Winchers, I use it for the Nissan, and then I just got the Ford, so I'm gonna have to pick up a set for that. But I do have the slotted rotors and then the pads, and these things are awesome. Stops the Tacoma no problem on 35s. And even you can see my old pads weren't that old. This is probably about a year use, and it's not much at all. But I'm replacing them just because, you know, we already had the truck apart, might as well take care of it. But I'm gonna throw this back together. We're almost done. We're getting there. So look at, when I check it like that, there's no wiggle. But watch this. So lower ball joint on this side needs to be replaced. Okay. So we're gonna let this settle a little bit, and I'm gonna do an oil change on the truck before we really test. But first, look at that. The being able to stick my fingers in here is a huge plus, because I am not coil binding currently. Now the big question is height. I did not measure height before we started this little experiment, but off the top of my head, it looks kind of tallish. Did this fucking work? We're gonna have to drive it around. I think the rear is still a little higher than the front. It should be, because when you do a 63 swap, it's like a 6-inch lift. It's fucking ridiculous. Let's do an oil change real quick, and then after that, we'll go drive the truck around a little, let the suspension settle a little bit more, and then we're gonna have to do some wheeling and stuff too. So let's all right, cut to stuff. Okay, test number one. I drove it around a little bit. It's bouncy. It's really bouncy. So does that mean it's more stiff or less stiff? I don't know, but it's pretty bouncy. So maybe that means it's soft. But I went and flexed it out on a rock. Nothing too crazy, you know. Flex it up just until it kind of flexed itself out, and you can see. Look at this. No coil binding. Absolutely no coil binding. That is awesome. And also, tires are like rubbing a little bit, but not much. It's actually rubbing less than before, so it seems like it's a little bit taller. And then over here, it's stretched out pretty good. It's not fully tucked, but it's decently tucked. So far, so good. I'm gonna drive it around a little bit more and see how we're doing. All right, so far it's riding pretty good. I want to try it off-road though. And then I want to check the nitrogen in the shocks to make sure everything's solid with it. But it does feel different, but I'm going from 2 inches of preload to no preload. So, you know, that's a pretty big difference. We'll see. I don't know. It feels like, look, that's with no sway bar, and I don't have that much body roll, honestly. It's not bad. All right. I'm going to say test drive was successful. So far, so good. I mean, the fact that it doesn't rub, I'm not binding coils, and it's driving pretty decent so far. I'm gonna go check on the pressure, make sure I have enough nitrogen and that it's where I want it to be, and then I'm gonna drive it off-road and drive it over the next couple days, and we will check in then. So stay tuned. We'll wrap this up soon, give you guys some feedback on what I did, and then we'll kind of give some final thoughts and all that stuff. But experiment so far is looking good. We're gonna do a little bit more testing, go from there. Let's get it. All right. It's been a couple days. We've been driving the Tacoma, daily driving, just doing all that stuff. I'll say, so far, experiment is pass. Hardcore pass. Maybe not hardcore, but pass. So far, the truck ride's roughly the same. It's still stiff. It might be a little stiffer than normal, which means, you know, on slow, bumpy, you know, on like slow bumps and stuff, it's going to have some, it's not going to ride good on the street, right? This is an off-road rig. That's kind of how it's going to be. It rides a little bit stiff, but it's not worse than it was before. Secondly, there is zero coil bind and there is zero body roll, and this thing is lifted up so high that it clears the 35s without rubbing. Now, I still want to use this off-road and you know, continue testing from there, but so far I'm going to say 16-inch Tundra Springs on a Tacoma, it actually works. I'm surprised. Now, that all brings us to right now. For some reason, the truck's taken apart. We're going to talk about that right now. So you can see our spring in here. You can see zero coil bind. I love it. Now, you'll see the lower control arms are actually taken off. Took those off yesterday. Why did we take those off? Well, while I was at Solo Motorsports, I picked up a set of their mid-travel lower arms. Check these out. We're going to do an installation on these right now. So these are fully boxed lower arms for their mid-travel. So I already run their upper arm, which you might not be able to see it very well. There it is right there. So I run their top arm, and that one, you know, it's uniball, polyurethane bushings. You can swap it out, do all that stuff. This is the same idea. This eliminates your ball joint by going to a uniball conversion. And then I have all my hardware. It's poly bushings. It moves the tire forward an entire inch to make it easier to clear big tires. Maybe we can go 37 someday. I don't know. That's something we'll figure out later. But for now, I'm running low on time, so we're gonna go ahead and install this and go from there. Now, quick note. These are powder coated. Normally the lower uniball conversion will come powder coated, but I was in a rush, so I told them I'm willing to spray paint these myself. So I'm gonna hit these with some paint, and then we're gonna get all of this installed. Real quick for you guys. So you saw me putting these in. Oops, that one kind of fell off. Oopsies. Got to tap that one back in. So with the arms, the bushings are specific. There's a longer one that goes in the back, which goes with the barrel that has a smaller bolt, because that one is just a bolt running through it rather than the whole cam. So this holds a little bit bigger. Pay attention to the instructions. There's anti-seize all over the place because I'm in a rush and I'm anti-seizing everything. It's fine. It's all going to be slippery. But we're going to throw this arm in, and then we're good to go. Check it out. Woo! Look at those. Those are, look at that, uniball. We got the other side in. This side's in. Took me about an hour to do the install. Didn't really run into any issues. Just had to tap things into place here and there, yada, yada, yada. But cool, we're good to go there. I'm going to throw the tires on. I got to get to the alignment shop. They're closing in about a half hour. So let's get it aligned. We'll drive around. We'll do some other stuff, and then we'll wrap up. Let's get it. All right. What a nightmare. Now, last we left off, we threw on our lower control arms from Solo Motorsports. We went and got our alignment done, and then we headed out to Cougar Buttes for a trip. Now, during that trip, we did run into some issues. Now, not right away. You guys will see a full video on that coming up. It's actually going to be coming later this week. But in that video, I hit a couple obstacles. We had some fun. We were doing some things with the Tacoma. And then later in the video, I ended up breaking a CV axle. Now, I didn't know it at the time, but there was a much bigger problem rather than just the CV axle itself going on with my truck. Later that day, we took it out to an O'Reilly's. I swapped the axle in the parking lot, and then I broke the new axle right away. Turns out what was happening was something with my suspension or the front end shifted so that the axle was getting stretched out, getting pulled out of the socket, and as soon as you put power on it, it would just snap it. Now, originally, because the control arms were the first thing that I threw on, I thought it might have been the control arms, so I went and checked it at the alignment shop. You know, I checked to make sure nothing was bent. I mean, they're good control arms. You know, they're built solid. They're fucking, you know, boxed and doing all that stuff. They're gusseted. There's no way that I bent those, but it was the first thing I put on, so check that first. Then I started to think that it might have been our new coil setup, maybe just lifting the truck up a little too much to where it was pulling the axle out of the socket, and that's what was causing the problem. Now, it turns out the culprit was this right here. Now, this is the driver's side front diff mount. And you can't really see it on camera probably too much, but there is a slight bend in this right here. Now this diff mount was a little, this bolt was loose and this one was backed out just a little bit. This one was tight. And at some point the diff, you know, somewhere there was getting pressure, right? And it ended up bending it right here, which shifted the diff over just a little bit to where I was pulling the axle out of the socket. It was probably shifted over about a half an inch. Now I ended up changing this mount, but I'm still having that issue a little bit. So in order to get the truck where it is right now, to where I'm able to drive it and off-road it and do all those things, I had to make some adjustments. First of all, I had to put my camber all the way in. I had to put the diff spacer, if you guys are familiar with the diff drop kit that you can get from like Toy Tech and a bunch of other places, I ended up using the diff drop just on the passenger side to let that, you know, let that diff, you know, drop down a little bit, kind of settle over to the side. So there's some bigger issues here at play to where I might have to get, you know, get some things checked. I'm pretty sure my subframe is bent. Hey, I've been beating this truck up for years. Something went wrong. Something's a little bent here. Maybe the other diff mount is bent. It's something we'll have to check out. But where does that bring us? Well, that brings us to the close of this video. Does a Tundra spring work on a Tacoma mid-travel setup? Kind of. I'm gonna say kind of. Because I don't know if this diff issue was related to me changing the springs. It may have. What I can tell you is based off, now there's a reason the truck is sitting on all 4 tires and it's drivable, but these coilovers aren't on here. I did something different. You guys are going to see that soon. I'm not telling you anything right now. If you really want to know, check out our Instagram. You'll know exactly what we did. But we changed some things on the Tacoma to where we are not using these coilovers anymore. As for our experiment, what I have learned is this works, but it will not work if you off-road. If you're like me, you use your truck, you do all that stuff, this exact setup will not work. It'll give you the height you want. Yes, it eliminates coil bind. My previous springs were binding up too much with the preload I had, but this is too stiff of a ride for off-road, hitting bumps, going through whoops, doing all that stuff. It is much too stiff of a ride. In fact, it's too stiff of a ride with how I had it set up before, where it was binding down the coils and it had a lot of preload in there. That's not what you want on your truck. It was way too much preload, way too stiff in the front. And I know that for a fact because of what we have going on right now. It is perfect. No, not perfect. I got to dial it in a little bit, but we got some good things going on in the truck to where now hindsight is 2020, and this is definitely not going to work out for what I'm trying to do with the truck. Now, for those of you in the beginning of this video that may have been like, hey, dumbass, I could have told you that a longer Tundra spring, a 16-inch spring wasn't going to work on a Tacoma shock. That's fine and all, but I've seen a lot of people asking the same exact question that I was asking. I've seen a lot of forums out there where people had asked the question. Nobody had tried it. I was willing to try it. I was willing to give it a risk, give it a chance, see what kind of results we could come up with. And then we did get some results. We did get, I guess, some data, you know, to where, yes, this can work. I think if I were to play around with it a little bit more, maybe go with a, you know, a lighter weight rating on the spring, go a 16-inch spring, but maybe it's a 600-pound rating or a 550-pound rating. I think I could have, you know, softened it up a little bit, but I still would have gotten the height that I want. I think it could have worked if I were to play around with it a little bit. If you guys want to kind of do the same thing, be prepared because, hey, I messed around with the truck. You know, you say fuck around, find out. I fucked around and I found out and I started bending some stuff and we don't know what's going on with the truck, but it's good for now. My point is, I made this video in order to try something out, to get some results, to see, you know, what kind of experimentation, what kind of new things we can do with the trucks that, you know, we haven't seen out there before. And I'm definitely happy that I did it because it led me to where I'm at right now with this truck. Now, there's a lot of moving parts in this video. There's a lot of different things that we did. I ended up going kind of all over the place, but that's kind of what you do when you're trying to, you know, fine tune a vehicle and try to figure out what kind of setup you want to work with. Hopefully this video gives you guys some good information to where you can learn some things about your vehicle, whether it's learning what to do or learning what not to do. You know, the information's out there. Whatever I'm learning along the way, and I'm showing it to you guys so you can learn from whatever mistakes, whatever successes that I'm having. We got a lot more stuff going on with the Tacoma in the near future. Right now, we got some dialing in to do with the new suspension setup and some things that we're going to be doing with the truck. Taking it on a few trips already. We've got a few more trips planned. So look forward to more Tacoma videos where we continue to build this truck up. Got to make some more changes on it. We're going to be doing some, you know, not just suspension changes, but we're going to be doing some more, you know, I guess, physical changes, body changes. We're going to be doing some stuff, you know. I'm going to be changing up this truck quite a bit because it's been built like this for the past couple years. It's time to change it up a little bit, do some things, and kind of see what the next phase for our Tacoma is going to be. Now, finally, we did throw on some lower control arms on the truck. I got to say, I really like these lower control arms. First of all, they're very easy to install. They have a high clearance deal kind of going on to where you can rock crawl with these and you don't have to worry about scraping on so many rocks, you know, messing them up, damaging them. You know, the lower uniball conversion, the build on them, it's all good stuff. I can highly recommend those arms for anybody out there looking for an upgrade to their mid-travel setup. But that's pretty much going to be it for this video. Hope you guys learned some stuff. I definitely learned some stuff. Like I said, we were kind of all over the place in this video, trying some new things, buying stuff on the fly, making last minute changes, going out on runs, breaking stuff, figuring some stuff out. You know, it's kind of, you know, it's cool. We're having some fun. We're learning stuff. We're doing cool things. So I hope you guys are enjoying that too. But that's going to be it for this video. I want to thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe, channel, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and Patreon. You also listen for shirts, hats, hoodies, and all those other goodies. Dirt Nation Off-Road, BigCartel.com. We got some cool things on our Big Cartel coming up. We also have a promo code that we're going to be launching on Patreon to where you guys can save 10% on all your orders through our Big Cartel as a Patreon member. So check that out down below. Patreon, Big Cartel, all that fun stuff. But that's it for this video. Thank you guys. Let's get it.